should be doing. When you
Yes.
put it, when you just you simplify it. You're saying that by putting pressure on the body, it's going to work not just the joints and ligaments, but it's going to work the joints and ligaments on things that you don't normally work. And that is how you create longevity over a long period of time with less wear and tear on the body. It seems as though society I still rarely get, hey, is it heavy weights, low reps, or is it lightweight, lots of reps? I don't get that as much anymore because I think the society is just going straight to light weights, lots of reps, and not even just that.
I mean, that's
but bouncing around
my
the gym.
opinion. What's that?
And they also just like
What's
bouncing
that?
around the gym. You just exercise after exercise after exercise. I'm doing 4 different exercises, 20 reps each, and they can just continue to work. And that to me is mind blowing. Because a lot of the people that are teaching this philosophy didn't get their muscle and their size and their strength and their shape, and they weren't at the top of the game with that mentality of training. They got there in the same approach that you and I are still kind of doing today. So why the switch up? Why the switch up? Is it because they're older now?
No, I think in
my opinion, we're getting further and further away from being educated in how we train. For instance, you hit the nail right on the head in the fact that everybody's searching for the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and they have forgotten about the actin and myosin hypertrophy. So let me go into a little bit of detail. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is going to be changing the cell size based on the membrane, the fluid, the pump, per se. The actin and myosin hypertrophy comes from heavy, hard training that actually changes the contractile proteins of the muscle cell. So, for instance, the guys like you, me, Kazmaier, those guys had trained so heavy that the actin and myosin proteins have changed permanently, and now you can go into phases of high reps, lower intensity, and you still maintain the change genetically into the proteins of actin and myosin. So basically there's 2 styles of hypertrophy, and you better master both. And only one's going to come from heavy and the other is going to come from light.
So when anybody talks hypertrophy, they talk about it's a rep thing. It's 12 and beyond reps is hypertrophy in that sense.
Yeah, and in reality, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is going to be at maximum at around 45 seconds,
i.e. if we are talking about a 3-second to 4-second ratio per rep, 12 reps is going to allocate to between 45 seconds to 1 minute, which is going to be hypertrophy in the sarcoplasmic range. But you're not going to get much change at the protein synthesis range down at the actin and myosin level, which is where you're going to tear out a ton of muscles in ultra heavy singles, doubles, triples, and even fives.
I mean, for you and me, not all powerlifters, but for you and me, the way we lift 5 reps, at times probably is 40 seconds. Because there's something I've noticed about you is I always talk about do a single 12 times. You know, do and because I've seen your form, and like when you and I did the 500 for 20s, it was 1 rep, 2 reps, 3 reps. Where I saw a lot of the other people around the world, their reps was a bodybuilding style. Not saying that it's bad, but it's just a completely different. We're confirming the 1 rep each time, adding up to 20. And it takes us forever to get there, and it's much tougher. I think you and I hit both hypertrophies because we are using heavy weights, and then we also take that time under tension and do hit the 30, 45 seconds per set.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's where you look at the top.
Yep, and that's where you look at the top bodybuilders in the world start off as powerlifters to create the axis and myosin hypertrophy, which is semi-permanent change, and then they polish with the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which, you know, as you and I both know, if we stop lifting for 2 weeks, we just feel deflated. That's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Axis and myosin hypertrophy never leaves. So in all reality, if you and I stopped training for upwards of a month, we would not look any different. We might feel a little less solid, but we're not going to look any different. And the reason is because we created the permanent protein change from the ultra heavy singles, doubles, and upwards of weight. Wait a minute, this guy's crazy, and he has to have this muscle in case we have to do crazy shit. The body will never change with reps of 15, 20. In that range is my opinion.
So here's one of the big things is you just basically said something that happens to so many people. As they get ready for shows or they stop training, something that happens is the deterioration or how fast they put on that size, and then it just leaves. It's gone. And it's so fast. And I've noticed it being at Gold's Gym for over 30 years. I've noticed some of those guys that created the foundation, like you and I, we're twins going through high school. You know, we both graduated as powerlifters, both at 272 pounds. We had that thick density. So we had this incredible foundation that came from heavy lifting. And so for you and me, if we take a little time off, we don't change much. That stays there. Where I've seen a lot of these guys, and there's other factors in it, chemicals and stuff, but they disappear. They go from this 280-pound guy down to 194 pounds and sloped shoulders within a year, and they just disappear. And so I think that's going back to the point that we're talking about is there's such a beautiful foundation created off of the heavy lifting. And there's such a myth on wear and tear with heavy lifting.
Hitting the same nail on the head
of is what you're saying is like what we've just basically proved is that heavy lifting creates permanent change in the muscle tissue, and light lifting creates acute training, but it does or change, but it doesn't necessarily stay forever. For instance, you know, I'm good friends with Ed Cohen, and Ed Cohen hasn't been able to train heavy in 15 years, and you still shake his hand and look at his forearms and his back muscles. They're not going anywhere until he rots in a casket.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
so, in my opinion, with
those old school guys.
Yeah, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Why you call me Goathead? Why do you call me a Goathead? Wait, dude, this is live. You can't be. Just kidding.
Go ahead.
I'm just see that.
Yeah. You got me.
The old school powerlifters that I know were monsters throughout their times, and just like you said about Ed, is 10, 15, 20 years after they retired, they were still monsters. Where it's different when I see my friends that were bodybuilders from the old schools and see what they look like now. They deteriorated, and they're smaller individuals now. And so I guess it just kind of goes back to the point that you and I have talked about is to change that body and do that work that continuously stays there is so beneficial compared to the light stuff. And we're not saying do one or not the other. We're saying do both. Both are beneficial.
Yes.
So just so
exactly,
you
you have to have those.
We're not trying to destroy you and say that you have to only lift heavy. Don't. Do both. Enjoy both. Have fun with both.
Can I
go?
Let me put in another comment on that.
Let me put in another comment on that. So you got to remember too that lifting maximal weights has also got another benefit that we have not touched on. And the fact of the matter is that a 500-pound bench presser can use 100, 110, 120, upwards of 150-pound dumbbells for reps. Versus if you're weak and you're trying to build everything in volume, you're going to be limited in the size of the weight that you can move. Therefore, the amount of muscle tissue activation you can actually sustain. So point being, maximal strength, even if your goal is reps, maximal strength allows you to do higher repetitions with a heavier load.
That'll go back to like for me, when I was dieted down right now, I was just doing 170s for 12 to 15 reps. And so that's that breakdown that we talk about, doing the higher reps. And something that I definitely wanted to talk to you about today was this. As I start this power program, it occurred to me, because trust me, it slips my mind at times. It occurred to me that the 30, the 40, and 50-year-olds would not do this because of the fact that their glass is too full. Their incredible depth of knowledge about weightlifting has surpassed, and they would never think to do a squat again, because that's something you do in your 20s, or deadlift because that's bad for your back.
Sure.
So my curiosity to you, because today the YouTubers, the 20-year-olds, these teenagers and the 20-year-olds, we are going to be talking to them, and they will love to do this program. And I know that. And I know those guys, because it's like you and me when we were in high school, we wanted to be the strongest guy in the world. We want to be savages. Sure. And so that's easy to talk to these kids and go, this is what I want you guys to do. I'm doing a power program. For the next 12 weeks, hang with me. Watch what I do to get my strength just ridiculous. And if you think I'm strong now, watch in 12 weeks. It's gonna be sick. But that being said, how can I talk to the 30, 40, and 50-year-olds that believe squatting and deadlifting are bad for you, or lifting heavy is bad for you?
Yeah, I mean, depending on
the mileage that's on the body is going to depend on which exercises are going to be able to be selected and used at 100% capacity. I mean, obviously, if somebody has fused spine or something of that nature, then obviously you're going to have to work around it by utilizing one of my belt squat machines. But the trick is understanding how to get the most multi-joint movement load on your body that you possibly can, and making sure that loading is going to not only produce muscle activation, hypertrophy, ligament and tendon density, but also reduce the amount of mileage, or at least sustain the amount of mileage on the body. And that's where your programs are very thought out as far as volume to risk to benefit ratio. And that's where everybody has to get on the same page, is that, I'm sure there's other programs that can get you big. There's other programs like mine that can get you strong, but it's the fine detail of what you're doing with reducing or sustaining the mileage on the body while going through the process that I think is the huge seller to the older population.
Yes, you're going to make them squat.
Yes, you're going to make them deadlift, but you're also going to make sure that amount is all in the green and not in the red.
Do me switch this. One thing that I do, and going back to your belt squat, because you named it earlier, something I do with the one guy I do train at my house, Bryce, is I will switch off each week. I'll do a power squat 1 week of some sort, if it's a Hatfield supported squat, front squats, back squats, high bar squats, box squats, Anderson squats even. But we'll go back and forth between that, and every single other week we do the belt squat. I think your machine is ridiculously beneficial. And I know not everybody has that, but if you guys can talk to your gyms and stuff and try to get one of those in there, it's the most badass thing. So what I do with my crew is we squat twice a week now with this power program. So once a week we do the belt squat. So like today we went in, just did basic low over, just deep squats. And then this Saturday we'll come back and do squats again, but with the belt squat. Now,
so you're stating the same thing that we just talked about, which is you're rotating the mode. So you're still squatting, but you're changing the stimulus of the squat in order to sustain higher volumes and higher intensities, which is so smart. That's the real difference between what you and I do, but compared to everybody else. It's thought out on how do I make progress, keep squatting, keep getting full range of motion, but not have the mileage problems that most people have using the exact same exercise, the exact same way too many times.
Yeah, that's, I think one of the biggest things that I would love for people to understand is that again, for you and me, what's kept us together is the heavier weight and keeping that nervous system alive, and stepping out with something. As they say, your body adapts to the pressure it's put under. Take that and go further with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, the body does adapt to the pressures that it's under. The body does adapt to the pressures that it's under, but there is a line where the body goes, I'm going to either finish this work or I'm going to learn from this work. And that's where optimization has to come into play. Meaning that if we train too hard, the body's going to let us complete that task, but there's really no positive benefit to it. Because it's too much, right? I look at it in this perspective. If I'm going to give you a new book on training and I say I want you to read this 300-page book and I want you to come back and tell me everything about it, the next day, that's impossible. You're not going to absorb it fast enough. Same with training. But if I give you that book and only have you read 2 paragraphs per day, then in 6 months you'll have mastered that book. And that is the same thing with training. You cannot over or under stimulate. You have to, and the stronger and bigger you get, the finer that gray area becomes. In the beginning, everything's black or white. It's either nothing or you train hard. But as you get better and you build a base, everything becomes a finer line of under or over training. And that's when the smart man separates himself.
Now, we did not talk about that, right? You and I just got on this in the last hour, and we just started talking because I want to clarify something so beautiful for you. And I got a witness here, Jeffrey, who's just leaving now. He's running away. So game plan. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do 5 to 7 sets of 2 heavy. After my squats, I'm going to do some down squats. I'm going to do another 5 sets, about 4 to 5 reps. So we finish our heavy, our 5 to 7 sets of 2. And this is the first day back on the power program, so we went heavier than normal. We did all this stuff better than normal, and we did that volume of the unload the weight, load the weight on, take it off, hitting that nervous system over and over again. Now you would think, well, 7 sets of 2, that's not much compared to your normal workouts, because I'll go in and I'll leg press and hack squats and do front squats and leg curls. I realized after just doing our 7 sets of 2 that I was done. I didn't need to do the down sets. It's being the first day back in. And I think this is a metaphor for what you're saying about the book, is if you say, go do the whole book right now, read it, tell me everything about it tomorrow, it's too much. And today, I think for me and the whole team that was with me, we're like, after we finished our heavy sets, we were like, it's a good first day back, first week back, we're done. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with, you're exactly correct, with the central nervous system activation. See, with you being as dieted down as you have been, the body is not going to allow you to do nearly as much intensity as you can do now. Because you put some weight back on, you've got some fluid back in you, your body can fire like a real V8 now. My thought process is that you stripped yourself down and you had been so lean for so long that even max effort is not max effort. But see now, with the 7 sets of 2, max effort is becoming real max effort again. Therefore, CNS fatigue, which in my opinion is more important than the muscular fatigue to recover from, that you can as an older lifter, I would say by the time you're 35 to 40, you're going to have to know this, is when the body has read enough chapters to say, or enough sentences or enough paragraphs to say, this is enough for today, I'm not going to heal from anymore. It's not what you can do, it's what you can recover from.
That's the greatest statement ever. It's, you can train as well as you can recover. If you can't recover, you're not doing it. And for those 20-year-olds that are out there watching this video, you guys can recover. So just know the difference between being tired and not having that fight in you. I would say to my young self, and I would like you to say the same thing, to my young self, I would have said less is more. As much as I was doing. I came from that powerlifting gym with the greatest, and then I go to a bodybuilding gym with the greatest again. And I'm doing leg workouts with Tom Plaz, but those leg workouts are 3.5 hours. Now, I'm 21 years old, so you can't tell me not to do it. I'm training with Tom Plaz, a kid, the guy I grew up reading the magazines. I'm there with Robbie Robinson, Arnold's there. All these people are there. I'm not stopping. And that's when I was doing
hell no.
315 for 54 reps. And so it was one of those things that is like, I won't turn it off. I would have made more progress by turning it off halfway through. What would you say to your young self?
My young self, I don't have a lot to say to myself because here's the thing, coming from, I think the big help to me
Louie and Eddie was that, Louie and Eddie were always looking for optimization points. So from my background is we never went to that. If we did, it was for a heavy single or a double. It was never for sets of 50 or something, where it was just maximum tear down. But I think the big advantage that I had talking to your younger guys is I was always a good sleeper. I'd never liked staying out late, and I always liked getting at least 9 hours of sleep through my teens and 20s, which made me very anabolic and very strong in the gym.
I didn't think about this, but it's funny that we came to the same pinnacle, in a sense, of understanding weightlifting and how to use it and how to utilize calories and recovery and training and percentages and numbers of reps and sets. But we came from two different worlds, even though...
Put these in, see if this helps.
Yeah.
Audio's a little. For the viewers.
To the viewers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See if
Sorry, guys. Is this better?
Wait till if you can. Wait, I gotta get it plugged in.
I look
keep,
fancy,
keep
though.
going. No.
But you came from powerlifters that were studying this thing wholeheartedly, and in the forefront of understanding form, speed, techniques, recovery. Where I came from, powerlifters that were old school grit powerlifters were just Doug Furness. If it's 950, it's 950. Let me lift that bad boy. So that was something that was so.
You're right.
And then I went to bodybuilders who knew less than even the powerlifters, because those guys would just train like beasts.
Sure.
Continue so these guys understand who you were growing up with and training with.
Yeah, so when I was training, as a child, the first, I would say, legend of lifting that I met was Larry Pacifico. And for the guys that don't know Larry Pacifico, he won 10 world titles unbeaten. That was the one guy that Louis Simmons said no matter how many drugs or how hard he trained, he could never beat. And then I met him about 14 or 15. And then Ed Cohen came into the picture at about 16 or 17, came up to me and said, "Hey, if you can hold on for another 10 years, you can squat. You'll be squatting 800 or 900 pounds." And I thought, okay, because for most people that would have been a big detriment.
Yeah.
They'd be like, 10 more years. I'm like, I didn't care. I knew I was going to be around anyway. So I just took my time and was patient. And then that led into meeting Louis Simmons and Chuck Vogelpohl, and actually pulling me to where I live now, which is Columbus, and starting my own facility here. So I would say that Larry Pacifico was probably my first mentor as far as a legendary status, and then Ed Cohen, and then Louis, and Chuck Vogelpohl and the guys at Westside. And then that kind of just morphed me into my own style of understanding kind of the conjugate system and the hardcore old school work, and then understanding how to recover better. So those were my influences as far as powerlifting goes. But like I said, as far as dieting and understanding how to get leaner and stay healthier, you and Stan have been
So jump back for a second, because I do want to say the gym name. I just found out what your gym name stands for. Can you tell everybody what your gym, the name of it? But there we go. Keep going.
If you go see the Colosseum in Rome, the training of the gladiators was right next to there, and the Colosseum where the gladiators trained was called Ludus Magnus, and it housed the best gladiators to ever live.
Yeah, I thought that was Yeah, I thought that was very creative. That's where the actual gladiators were training and stuff. I love that part. Um, if there's something you can say, and obviously, again, I want to talk because the young 20-year-olds are going to join me on this. The young 20-year-olds and teenagers, I'm telling you guys, and so is Matt, that this is the time. I always heard in my head, and people would tell me, hey, you can only grow until you're about 24, 25. That's when you put all that real big size on. And so for me, I was in a rush. I was in a rush to make sure that I didn't party. I didn't do anything bad. I stayed on my program more from that age of 14 till 24, 25 than ever in my life. Um, and but then that pattern of living that way, I continued it. But for those youngsters, I know they're going to jump on this power program. Is there something you can say to those youngsters that they should worry or think about right now? What would help them?
Well, I think, and obviously, like I said, we haven't talked about the power program or dived into it too much, but, I think you're always better at starting with a little bit lower percentage of what you actually think your max is, especially if you're not a seasoned lifter. So if you know for sure that you cannot bench 405 and you start off with your percentages
Did
at 405, it could cause
you hear what it
very,
said?
very fast burnout rates. So I'm going to give them a tip.
I'm interrupting you because
Yeah. So I'm going to give them a
I'm sorry,
tip.
just because
So
I
when
did that with my whole crew. I
no, it's
set them
fine.
up at least 50 to 100 pounds less than what they normally can do for the first 4 weeks. Um, just like you're saying to these guys, which is ironic again, because I'm asking you now what you would do, and you did exactly what I would think you should do. So continue.
Yeah. So when I benched 606 after squatting the all-time world record, when I got back in 2 weeks later, I finally was recovered and ready to train again. I based my new bench press max off of 550, which knocked it down 10%. And when I did that, I trained for another 9 months, went back, squatted another world record, and then benched 615. Now, keep in mind that my squat at 881 and my bench at 615 was an all-time subtotal ever done under 300 pounds. So my point was, is I always dropped everything down 10% to start the new cycle. That way I could not
I love
overtrain.
that. It's funny as we keep getting to know each other and we keep talking and we keep doing these discussions. It's amazing the similarity that we both believe in. It's it's frightening, frightening. So it's also just coming from our past and being able to do this as long as we have done. Uh, Again, we go back to less wear and tear. Can you recover? Um, Less is more. Percentages go below it. Don't be overly hyped to get that big number. And I think the big word here would be patience. What is your take?
Mm-hmm. Patience is 100%, but where I got that dropping down 10% was Larry Pacifico telling me at 40, saying, Matt, when you're in the gym, everything is a 9, never a 10. So I thought, well, I'll just take 10% off of everything when I get done with the meet. But see, here's the deal: is that 10%? When I benched 606, I was basing everything off of 540. Then when I benched 615, roughly 10 pounds heavier, I based everything off 550. So it did go up as far as how much I was lifting, but it went up 10% less every time. So my point is that underdoing something is always more beneficial than over. You can always recover from undertraining slightly, but you cannot recover from overtraining. And that is where a skilled program, such as what you're probably giving to these guys, is going to help you guide those areas, because you and I both did not learn that easily. We learned it with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and that is the whole thing that you try to tell people is like, please learn from the small mistakes that fortunately you and I.
It's extremely on point. We learn that from overtraining. We learned that from, or at least I did. I learned that from overtraining, being even much slower than everybody else in the sense of that extra size. Um, So yeah, and the hardest thing for me to tell somebody uh, is, and this is all ages, because everybody believes that nobody can outwork you. And I always try to say that I never outworked anybody in the gym. I outworked them outside of the gym with the nutrition. I never outworked anybody in the gym. And I try to tell them to be a little bit more patient or pull back a little bit more in the gym. And it is the freakiest thing because I've done it for 40 years. And so I try to tell them this, but man, society today loves the idea of 100% no matter what, even if you're not eating right, even if you're not sleeping right, even if the home life is not great, they're stressed out, their cortisol is at an all-time high, and they still want to go in and go 100%. Now, I understand mentally why that is, because you want to be that beast and release that energy. But for your body, you're breaking it down even more.
Yeah, in my opinion, that no matter how good training is for you, it's still a stressor, and you have to learn how to get your body away from other stressors. I.e., if you want to outwork somebody, like what you're saying, you can outwork people not only in the gym, but what you're doing outside, out sleep, out properly eat, out properly do other things that are going to allow you to put that maximal work in at the gym to whatever your capabilities may be at that day. That's the other thing too, is you have different kinds of max training. You have different kinds of abilities, by meaning that, I base everything off of a training maximum, meaning, do I feel really good that day? The answer is no. I want to know what my max is that day, because as you know, as you get older, those competition all-time maxes become farther and few between. And if that's your goal, as far as that's your driving force, good luck trying to hold on to that. Because like I just said, I worked out for almost a whole year for my bench to go from 606 to 615. The number is important, but what's more important is that I train smart and do not get.
You said something there that is mind blowing. And Jeffrey, if you don't have any questions, we'll leave it on this note. Is you're talking about the consistency. You're talking about the energy consistency. You don't feel like $1,000,000 every time you walk in the gym. So if you're going off your numbers and your numbers are at your peak, you're not going to make those numbers every single week because you're not the same person every single day. And you're walking in on Monday thinking, I am beat down, the weekend destroyed me, but I'm going to still get a better number than I did last week because that's what the percentages are. So I'm going to hit it. Wow, that sets you up to fail. And you're so right about that aspect.
So I'm doing some research right now for a big advanced training protocol for the NSCA. Dr. Kramer is pretty much my old professor. He's in charge of Ohio State, but he's been in every research article since the 70s from America. He was a founder of the NSCA. We're doing an advanced training protocol for the NSCA at Colorado Springs. He's pretty much handing me the torch. And, this is a big deal. But on this point is I was starting to dig into some old research, and I found a paper from the 60s that says that your strength in a daily wave can go upwards or downwards, upwards of about 20%. Meaning in the same day, if you were to train at 8 a.m. or 2 p.m., your percentage of your strength could be varied up to 20%. Meaning that you are not the same person even in the same hour.
That's a, that's a pretty impressive document to find or research paper to find. Um, that's I have no idea. I mean, I can be one of those guys that tells you I train at 4 in the morning because of it's that aspect of I can find time at 4 to 6 in the morning. I can't find time later, so I have to give and take some of the benefits of training at noon or at 2 o'clock. And that could be that 20%, but I'm okay with that because at least I'm consistent. At least I can continue to do this. And at least my numbers are what they are at that early morning. But that's a great point. Both mentally, physically, you're not the same person going in at 6 in the morning that you are at 2 in the afternoon. So, with that being said, I'm going to see Jeffrey. Do you have anything good for us?
Yeah, just started lifting at 40.
Okay.
What do you recommend supplement-wise for recovery?
All right. So someone just started training for the first time at 40 years old. and they would like to know what kind of supplements you and I recommend for him to start using for recovery. What's your thought?
Okay. Well, the first thing I'm going to try to do, is make my sleep time as quality as possible. So I'm going to supplement with magnesium glycinate, hands down. Magnesium glycinate is deficient 4 out of 5 people in the United States. We don't know the cause, but we think that it's from herbicides and pesticides. So the stuff we were used to eat that had high magnesium is very low in magnesium now. So magnesium supplementation is going to enhance the quality of the present sleep cycle. That's going to be huge. Zinc has also been heavily known to increase natural testosterone production, as well as any kind of natural anti-inflammatory, which is going to boost natural positive anabolic hormones, i.e. curcumin, turmeric, these types of things that are very easy on your organs, but also very anti-inflammatory. So as a 40-year-old lifter just starting, I'm going to try to enhance my sleep, and I'm going to try to enhance my anti-inflammatory properties by, 1, cleaning up my diet, and 2, probably supplementing with some form of turmeric or curcumin to pull that inflammation on as it did 20 years ago.
I love that answer. With the zinc, would you add in some D as well? The D and the zinc are both two things that have been known to really help boost your natural testosterone. The turmeric, I'm a fan also. Do you believe that the old school calcium magnesium mix is not as good as the magnesium by itself? I know the answer, but I'm just curious to see what you think the calcium magnesium mix compared to just magnesium. Yep. That's, yeah.
So and vitamin D also, yes, is a good supplementation, but it has to be taken with vitamin K, or it does not absorb correctly and has been shown to increase cholesterol in the bloodstream when vitamin D alone is taken. The K seems to be the transport mechanism from the cell. So a lot of the great vitamin D has vitamin K with it in order for it to absorb, but it also depends on what part of the country or the world that you're in. So, for instance, you're in LA, the sun shines a lot of the times. You're probably not as.
Have you seen me? So he's speaking about the K2 is really great for the heart. The studies are showing right now, and then you take that along with the D and the zinc. I add on to a DHEA, but a keto 7 DHEA is an additional thing. So these are all great, and what I love best about what you said is that you said the first thing I would do for recovery is correct my sleep. And again, guys, disregard, and I always say this, do as I say, not as I do. You don't need to train at 4 in the morning unless you get into bed by 8. But for me, I love that early time. But get your sleep. It really is such a big difference. And then the additional stuff that Matt put in there for recovery is great. I would add in the glutamine throughout the day, the branched chain amino acids, the EAAs, and the leucine combination. It really helped me in such a deficit as I was training. Believe it or not, energy-wise, recovery-wise, and extreme fullness. But for me, that was a nice plus to it. But those are, I mean, I think with that answer there, you just changed your whole recovery for everybody on this. Do you have another question for me?
For sure.
Static stretching.
Static stretching.
Thoughts on that? Big powerlifting guys like us.
You are a big boy. Static stretching. What is your take, Matty Mad?
Okay.
Go for it, kid.
I'm not a fan.
Tell us what.
Not a fan. My opinion is mobility trumps flexibility. So if I can move in a range of motion, i.e. the winning warm-up, like what I do, 4 sets of 25 in a squat pattern, a stretched hamstring pattern with a band, something of that nature, I find that function trumps flexibility, and if you can combine both, that is called mobility. And mobility, in my opinion, is what creates the flexibility that actually neurologically lasts. So I'm sure all of us have been to that point where we've stretched our hamstrings, we've gotten them pretty flexible, we wake up the next day, and they're back to where they were. Versus if I did that with a hamstring strength machine that put me in a full range of motion, I find that the flexibility stays longer, but it also reduces more injury, and there's a lot of research to
Wow,
back
that's
that
a
up.
great answer. Great answer. Yeah, for the fans, man, they're gonna love that one because you take it in depth and understand. And again, for me, I live this, so I understand the difference that you're speaking of relative to stretching out for a moment. It feels good, but then you wake up the next morning, it's back to being tight again. Relative to even if it's me just going through the squat motions, the next day when I wake up, I'm still so open and loose relative to that idea of just the stretching itself. So beautiful answer. Do we have another beautiful one? This guy is on fire today. Even though I'm just out angling him with those arms there. Oh. As long as Mona doesn't come over into this video, I'm all right. Anything? Are we blocking some people? Okay. He's blocking people and asking questions.
Hey, I had one for my
Oh,
follower.
one from your.
Guy was asking me about.
Go for it.
I had a guy ask me about testosterone replacement. He says his doctor says it's low. He's 40s, in his 40s, I think, or 50s. What would be something that he could try to do that would help his natural testosterone level without possibly having to go to the injections? So I'll let you answer that one for my fans.
There's a couple things. One is TRT is great for health benefits if you're with a good doctor. And it's something like I lost my father to prostate cancer because his estrogen was so high, and how prostate cancer starts for men is something for everybody. Please get checked, get your blood checked, and make sure that you are running healthy for everybody that's doing that. And I imagine Matt and I have connections for people to make sure to check your blood to make you healthy. Even if you feel healthy, I would still check it. I've just seen too many people after 35 and 40 and stuff deteriorate so quickly because they did have low testosterone, extremely low testosterone. So for me, there's some natural ways to do this. Lifting is one way. Lifting heavy is one way. Healthy diet, and there's certain foods that also help boost up your natural testosterone. And the world is getting so good with supplementation. There are supplements, and like we talked about with recovery, there are supplements that naturally boost up your own testosterone. And will it boost it up enough? If you've never done anything, I think it will help quite a bit. But I would still get checked on that aspect. The one thing that is regardless, in my opinion, if you have low testosterone, like in the 200 for a guy should be between 350 and it goes up to like 900. But that's 900 is a young teenager in a sense. But I do know guys in their 40s that are still at the 750 range, which is huge. But if you do have low testosterone, if you are in the range of 200 and stuff, I would recommend going to see a doctor and getting on TRT. And don't worry about what society says. Don't worry about anybody saying, well, you're taking something. This is your health. There's a different world when it comes to your health. For my dad, I wish he did TRT or that was available to him back in that day. But yeah, it's not something to play around with. You become so, and you can explain this too, is when a guy is so low, the bones become brittle. The life that you're living at that stage is so deteriorated. So, and then there's so many just diseases that can come becoming because of low testosterone. So I hope you guys listen to that and actually take that serious. For you young kids, in your mid 20s and 30s, I would recommend also just getting checked just because of any other kind of symptoms or anything. Uh, Thyroid is one of these things that gets blown out of the woodworks. And the studies show that don't blame your extra body weight to thyroid. Actually get it checked. The small percentage is 2% of Americans actually have a bad thyroid. 2%, which is tiny. But get it checked. Get in to see a doctor. Don't feel bad about it. And I don't care what age you are. If you have low testosterone, then talk to a doctor about TRT. What's your thought?
Yeah. I agree. My thought is making sure that most of the diet that you're having, and it can be genetic in the gut, is low inflammation. High inflammation tends to lower testosterone, raise estrogen. So you might be allergic to mushrooms, onions, some type of high FODMAP food that is causing your body to go through these reactions. Changing just small foods can make a huge difference. A lot of times people that I know that have low T either have long bouts of poor sleep or they're around heavy toxic metals. So a lot of people that are around tungsten, carbon, aluminum, those types of things, like welders, fabricators, they can have low T based on the fact that they have high metal, around them, and dust and sparks and smoke and all these other things can cause the body to have low T. So a lot of times low T can be a toxic problem. Something you're around that's toxic that you may not even know. I don't use deodorants with aluminum in them. I don't brush my teeth with fluoride anymore because it helps. It actually reduces the amount of absorption of magnesium. Now I'll go through dosages of bases where I'll go back to normal toothpaste just for a couple weeks, but I use a non-fluoride toothpaste and I can't believe how much better I feel based on the fact that I'm absorbing more magnesium. And I did not realize that fluoride was a blocker of magnesium. These are small things that cause a lot of issues in your hormonal imbalance, and we are around harsh chemicals and harsh metals daily. So the ones you can avoid.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm sending Mona out to get me some new toothpaste right now and some deodorant. So that's great insight, man. Thanks for taking time today, brother. I appreciate it. Hope the fans appreciated it and stuff. And we'll keep doing this. And congrats on the research that you're doing right now, man. That's huge. Sounds good. Sounds good, brother. Have a great day today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. All right. We'll talk soon. Bye, buddy.